Hey everybody, today I am planting up some containers, but these are containers that have given me trouble in the past. So I need to be proactive to make sure that I'm addressing some of the concerns or some of the issues that I've had in the past so that these containers will last beautiful or look beautiful all the way to the end of the season. So first one I'm going to talk about is this one here. It's just a basic container. It's 15 inches and we always put a King Tut grass in here. And it's really nice because we put it on our deck and we usually put it right behind one of the chairs, and these King Tut grasses get so big they go right over the chair and they kind of arch over your head. It makes kind of for a really nice atmosphere on the deck for anybody sitting in that corner. Kind of frames them really nice if you're sitting across from them as well. Only problem is to be honest with you, these King Tut grasses get so large that really by the end of the season, you could just have one of those in here and it just grows so big it takes over everything. But we always like to have something extra in there. So when we've done petunias and calibrachoas, they look really good until mid or late July, and then that tut grass just starts pushing against them, reducing their space more and more, and then they start to dwindle quite a bit. Now, had a little bit better luck with lantana. I think maybe because the lantana is a little bit more drought tolerant, but even that started to dwindle as the season went on. Lemon coral sedum, which is this stuff right here, this did pretty good in there because it just kind of created this mound, went around the edge, but we wanted some flowers. So what I decided to do this year is try something completely different. And what I first want to do to kind of contain that tut grass, what I'm going to try to do is plant the tut grass in another container and place it inside of here. And hopefully that will at least contain those roots somewhat so that those other plants have a little bit more time and can kind of hold out maybe a little longer. I haven't done this before, so I'm not sure exactly how I want to handle this, but I did decide I'm going to just cut out the bottom of this. That way those roots can still kind of grow. They might start growing up. And I want to plant it with a begonia this year because number one, begonias can be pretty drought tolerant, but also because it's behind the deck, it doesn't get really full sun all the time. So that might be part of the reason why the calibrachoa and the petunias also tended to diminish a little, although early in the season they looked fantastic. So I don't know if it was really a light issue, but I thought, you know what, this is a type of begonia that does really well either in sun or shade. It is called the Bossa Nova Night Fever Papaya. And so it's a little bit more of a trailing one. I'm hoping it'll just kind of hang over the edge. It's one I haven't grown it before, but I think it looks pretty good when I've seen all the pictures. I think it can get very, very large, but in this container it probably isn't going to get as huge as it would under other conditions. So first thing I think I'll do is I'm going to put a little bit of soil at the bottom just to kind of line it. And I'm okay because I know you can't really see too much. I'm just going to make it so that this pot is in line with this other pot. It's okay if people can see it. Hopefully that begonia is going to hide a little bit of that for me. So we'll get that going. Yeah, so that should work. And then I'm going to just gauge so you can see already the roots on this are, winding around. This is still a very healthy plant. It's doing really good. This is a very water loving plant as well. And I had mentioned in my last video that one of these broke in transit. So I'm going to just cut it off. I'm going to go down pretty far down, get rid of that broken one. And now let's get some soil in here. So I'm going to use the empty pot, or I could still have it in there just as my guide. I find it's just a little bit easier. Then I'm going to pack soil around the outside of the pot I just find sometimes it's a little easier. Now with the tut grass is really sturdy, so you don't have to worry about, manipulating it and stuff. But with some other plants, when they're more tender, like sometimes if you have maybe a begonia or even petunias and some of those plants, it can be a little bit more of a challenge when you're trying to plant them into a pot because they end up, as you're manipulating them, sometimes they get, a little bit broken, or what can also happen is you end up getting the soil on the plant and just is a little bit less than attractive. So I'm just going to try to fill this in the best I can. So I'm going to just use my fingers to get it all the way around the edge. Okay, now that that's all done, let's pop this container out. I packed it pretty tight. And then we're just going to drop this right on top of that, push it down, and voila, it's exactly the way we want it. So I've got it there. I'm going to leave it where it is. Now I'm going to add soil around this other pot. I've heard of people doing this, and we've done it with some of our customer containers as well. So hopefully this all works out really well. If it doesn't, I'll let you know. It'll be on my deck, and so when I do my tour, probably, it's usually in August or early September when I do a little tour. We'll go from there. So I am pushing the King Tut grass towards the back of the container so that I can just put those begonias up front. So we'll get this in there. Oops. Okay. So what I want to do, and I was kind of thinking, Creeping Jenny is one of those plants, the Lismachia is one of those plants that doesn't take up a lot of root space. So I thought maybe I'll put one of those right in the middle just so that I have a little bit of that lime color kind of continuing. So I have up at the top, I have that, the King Tut giving me the lime, and then I'll have these dark leaves of this begonia. And I'm going to position this begonia so that it's starting to flow outward because, as I mentioned before, begonias tend to grow in one direction or the other. So I feel like this is kind of your front view. You can see this is kind of the back. However, the way it's flowing, because it's a trailing begonia, I do want the longer end facing out. So I think this is going to create a nice effect, hopefully anyway. And if not, well, eventually they always kind of start to come together. So now just going to tuck in that Creeping Jenny, fill in my holes, and then we just wait and see how everybody does. Now, I want to make sure that I get good amount of soil around everybody. And I'm not worried too much about, this pot in a pot right now. We'll just keep an eye on it. Hopefully though, the big thing is that we make sure that we keep this one especially watered. This King Tut really loves the water. Begonias can dry right out. So when I'm watering this, I'm going to make sure that I put most of the water into the grass, and then I'll be a little more relaxed about watering the begonias. I'm not as worried about those. Okay, so I think that's going to be pretty nice. Now the next container that I'm doing is a container that I'm planting up for Liam's cousin Sandra. And the nice thing about Sandra is that she does give me free rein, so I can make changes to her ideas. But she did send me a list of plants that she would like to have in there. But here's the deal. Sandra kind of has a pretty aggressive little playlist here. So let me tell you what she was going to have in there. So one was the Rockin' Playin' the Blues salvia. Now this salvia, if you give it enough space, gets very, very large, and it's deceptive because when you first get it, it's not too big. It can look like just any other salvia, any of your basic, cathedral salvia, but it is a very large one. It becomes almost like it does become a shrub as it goes on. So that's really big. Then she also has the Vermillionaire Kufia, and this is another one that can get quite large if you give it enough room and as long as you're giving it water. Now, both those plants are pretty drought tolerant, so if you end up missing a watering with either one of those, it's not that big a deal. However, if they get just consistent water and you're not overwatering, just that consistent moisture, they get huge, especially if you're giving them that weekly water-soluble fertilizer. So absolutely a fantastic one. She also was hoping that I put in, now she's saying one of the salvia, then two of the Kufia, and then she was also hoping for two of the Selenia apricot begonias, another drought tolerant plant as well. So this pot is a nice one for being able to be drought tolerant, and this is a type of begonia that can take sun or shade, and it's really good in either one. Now in some of your warmer, hotter climates, it will not be a full sun plant. You're going to need to give it some protection from that hot afternoon sun, but here in Michigan we've had really good luck with it. So she's thinking of doing, those 5 plants, plus she was hoping for some Creeping Jenny and some lemon coral sedum kind of tucked in between. Well, the size of container that we're using, although it's large, it is not that large. So let me bring that out. So it's about 18.5 inches. So this is it right here. Sorry, I should have probably brought this out first, but I wasn't thinking ahead. Okay, so her thinking, now I'm going to actually recommend to her to try the Rockin' Deep Purple salvia. It's just a little bit different, has a dark, rich purple color, and I just thought it's probably going to be a really nice addition with this Kufia. So suddenly she's saying, okay, I want this. Now this is a really large container. Usually you don't get them in this big. A lot of places are going to only sell them small. So then she's saying, also put this in. Holy smokes, I'm already running out of room. Then these two, and then putting in those other 4 plants. I'm not going to do that to her, because even though this container, it had a reservoir, but we ended up drilling holes in the bottom simply because in her yard, she gets a lot of indirect light. So it gets direct light as well, but it's not always in direct sun, but it's very bright. So she's had good luck with all full sun plants growing there, but watering isn't as much of an issue in the location she has it. So she's really lucky in that. And she just found this thing was just holding too much water. It didn't really drain quite that well. So she kind of wanted to, we kind of made some changes to it. So it's really tricky because I have these different, these are very similar kind of shapes. They kind of grow vase-like, but I do think that this is going to be really beautiful. I think what I'm going to do, it's still going to be quite a few, but I think I'm going to just set this up where, you know, this big one is as if it's towards the back. This one's going to be there. And then I think what I'll do is I'm just going to put these 4 plants in. I will stick in probably the creeping Jenny. I'm a little worried with this lemon coral sedum. Lemon coral sedum, as it gets bigger, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I think it's just going to be too much, especially if I were to try to put more than one in. And I don't really have a great place to put it, because if I put it in the middle, it's not one that kind of fingers its way through. It's one that kind of I guess just bulges like bread dough, just keeps kind of growing and growing and growing, and it'll kind of push its way through. So I think this is how I'm going to do it. It's probably not exactly what she was expecting, but hopefully she'll be happy with it. And I think these purple and peach and orange colors, I think they're going to look really nice. I wouldn't have thought of the apricot begonia with the kufia, just because normally I think my default would be, hey, I'll just put it with orange because orange matches with orange. But the Selenia apricot has a lot of kind of orange hues in it. It's quite attractive. So I think it's going to be a good mix. So let me get this ready to go in, since this is my biggest one. Now, one of the things I've noticed with this one, it can get so big that it can start like really branching out. This is one that you can just keep nipping at, you know, take your snips, or just, you can snap it off, but I would recommend using snips on it because sometimes you can end up cracking it off. So let's get this out of here. So here goes. Now these little things that are falling down, these are just rice hulls that we put in as kind of a mulch in these. Okay, so this thing, man, these salvias, look at the roots on these. So this is really filling out quite nicely. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, you have to break up those roots. These roots are not root bound. They're not starting to spiral. If I put them in just like this, they're going to start making their way out into the kind of healthy soil. So I don't have to worry about that. And I know some people are very, very adamant that you have to break up the root ball. Not on annuals. I don't worry about it too much. In fact, unless a plant is really root bound, I don't worry about it. Trees and shrubs, you do want to pay attention to it, because those are plants that you're going to have long term. And if the roots are growing the wrong way with a tree or a shrub, it can, especially with trees, it can do a really bad number on your plants, or on your, you know, so in the life of the plant, it can really reduce that. So this is a little different way to do it, I feel like, by doing it one on each side like this, but I have a feeling it could be really interesting. You know, we'll wait and see. I hope Sandra likes it. She's, like I said, she's really good about this kind of stuff. She just wants to have pretty flowers, and she'll definitely be getting those with these. So let's get this out. Okay, so drop that in. Okay, so far so good. Now, let's make a little room. I'm going to put, I guess I'll show you. So I'm going to put probably the begonia probably right here, and then the creeping Jenny right next to it, because I think she definitely wants to have something that trails over the edge. Now this begonia it does have a natural tendency to kind of flow over the edge of a pot. It's not a trailing begonia, so it doesn't go real far under the pot, but it does do a nice job. So let's get some soil packed around this. And I want to make sure that I have fresh soil between the pot and the plant as well. That way it, you know, just gives all the roots all the way around a little chance to kind of bounce around. I'm going to do the other one on the other side. So I'm just going to get these in, and then we'll talk about the next one. Okay, so this container really is packed full. So there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 plants in here. Now, To be honest with you, I really probably only needed one of those begonias, and I could have skipped probably the creeping Jenny, and those 3 plants would fill this container very nicely. But fortunately, I know that Sandra hasn't had problems with these, and she's had petunias and calibrachoas and verbena and all kinds of plants like that in this container, in this location, and she was able to keep it watered. So I'm pretty confident that she'll be able to keep these going and that they're going to keep looking good. But let me tell you, if you had, trouble in the past keeping a container looking good and keeping it fed, this would be more plants than you need actually. So you could definitely go with, like I said, 3 plants. This one has the 6 in there, and it should do okay. The creeping Jenny isn't a real big, like, root bound type of plant, so that one I kind of consider a little bit neutral. So kind of hopefully this will work. But I think this is going to be a really interesting combination with that vermilion air, and the vermilion air does tend to trail over the edge as well. So we're going to get a pretty nice little combination here. So this container, it's 15 inches across this way, or if I measure it diagonally, it's 16 inches across. And so this is another decent sized one, but it's definitely smaller than the other one. And she definitely requested more plants than I think she really wants to have in there. So she had hoped to get a Soul Seeker Golden Nectar Helianthus, which is one of the branching sunflowers. I'm actually steering her towards the Sunfinity Double Yellow. I just think it's a new one this year. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I don't know, I feel like the color on this has just got so much vibrance, and it's really beautiful, that I think she needs to try this one. Truth be told, this is all you need in this pot. This one plant in here will thrive. It'll look absolutely gorgeous. However, she was hoping to get a little extra in there. Now, the Soul Seeker, I think, is only a little bit smaller than this one, so they can get really quite large. So she was hoping to get some Main Street Venice Boulevard Coleus. So she was thinking one on each side of the Sunseeker, and then also some of the Supertunia Mini Vista Ultramarine. Okay, and then she was also looking at maybe some white Bacopa in there. That is not going to work in here. It's going to, I mean, these things are going to be fighting it out if you do it that way. I think that's all we're going to do is the Helianthus. I am going to put 2 Supertunias in here against my better judgment, but I think she does want something that's going to trail over and going to cover that space, and just kind of create maybe a little bit of a buffer that the sunflower can kind of rise up over. And so I think it's going to be okay, but this is going to be a little bit harder to take care of. So let's get this sunflower planted, and then we'll see how it looks from there. So again, I'm not going to worry about those roots there. There's a little bit there, but that is not worth breaking up, at least not for me. Yeah, I mean, when you look at this already, it looks beautiful in here. This is a beautiful container just with this in it. But I'm going to honor her request and give her a little bit extra in here, and hopefully she doesn't have a problem. She'll let me know if it is too much, but the Supertunia Mini Vistas are going to be about the same size as a regular Supertunia. Sometimes they get a little larger, and I have to say this Supertunia Mini Vista Ultramarine, the purple color on it is absolutely stunning. It's really dark and rich, a lot like the Royal Velvet Supertunia. It's like we were looking at it compared to some of the other blue petunias out there, because in horticultural world this purple is actually called blue, and it's got a much richer color than a lot of those other ones. So it's pretty gorgeous, I will say. And it kind of came out just a couple years ago, so it hasn't been around very long. Sorry. Let's go for this. Ready, set, go. Okay. Yeah, this is pretty tricky to get all this in here. This is pretty packed. So if you're looking for super easy, I would just put that sunflower in there. You're going to be amazed at how huge this thing can get if you give it enough space. But again, I totally understand why she wants some of this color in here. And I think this golden color with this dark purple, it's a really nice combination. So I think she's going to be really happy with this. And so you can just see, that's the one downfall with a lot of times these dark purple petunias is that sometimes against the foliage, it's a little bit harder to see, but still quite extraordinary nonetheless. So, whew. Okay. So there you have it. I've got 3 containers here. Each one I had to kind of adjust based on trying to get it so that it's going to look good for as long as possible, because that is the biggest problem when you overpack your containers or you put plants that are just too vigorous with other plants that just can't keep up with them. They look good up until a certain point, and then someone starts overtaking the other, and it gets really frustrating. So like I've said this before, some people have the gift and they can always make it work. I, on the other hand, find that there's always one plant that loses out. So I'm trying to be proactive rather than reactive here. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you found this kind of helpful. I'm looking forward to seeing how that pot in a pot system works. I hope that, you know, I have some success and that those begonias do really well in that situation. If not, I'll let you know later on. So thanks for watching. I'll talk to you guys all very soon.